going to commit.
Are you submitting for trafficking or possession case?
It's a trafficking case. Total is 13 exhibits.
Every working day, the Central Narcotics Bureau will submit drugs exhibit to the illicit drugs laboratory for testing. Weekly, we receive at least about 100 exhibits. And we focus on the detection of controlled drugs in these exhibits. From these exhibits, I could see that we do have the traditional drugs which is suspected to be ice. So these are the exhibits that are suspected to contain a new wave of drugs that we have observed these few years. They occur in many different forms as well as possessing different chemical structure. These types of new drugs have made detection more complex and unpredictable.
There was a time where, as professionals, you're very clear about the frameworks involved in traditional substances. So we've been in the rehabilitation space for quite a number of years. I think in this past 2 years alone, I have come across individuals that are educating me. What is happening out there on the ground and what is available in the market. And you realize that the pace of change is a lot quicker than it has ever been. I've worked with clients, they are describing the effects of things like ecstasy, methamphetamine, but then they tell you that no, it's something that we found online, and that it's not a traditional drug. And then as a therapist, you need to go and research and find out what are these things.
I am the Chief of the National Addictions Management Service. Over here at NAMS, we provide inpatient and outpatient services to persons who are suffering from addictions. So in the past, drugs they came from nature, right? Like heroin comes from the poppy plant. However, since about 20-25 years ago, synthetics started coming onto the market.
Synthetic drugs are something that are cooked in chem labs. It's your party drugs like ecstasy, methamphetamine, which is ice.
And in the past 10 years, there's also been an introduction of different types of synthetic drugs into our market. Collectively, we call them NPS, or the new psychoactive substances.
New psychoactive substances are substances that mimic perhaps traditional drugs. What's happening is the proliferation and just the sheer volume of new NPS that are coming out into the market. Today, you can go online and it's not too difficult to find how to make these things. Here you've got something that's being cooked up in a lab by people that are not trained, but they are becoming chemists overnight, right?
A psychoactive substance is something that produces an effect in the brain. So different chemicals can do different things to the brain. Some are what we call stimulants or uppers. Some are downers that calm a person down. And some are hallucinogens, they make a person hallucinate to experience vision. So different drugs will achieve this through their different chemical structures.
New psychoactive substances are made by modifying the structure of existing drug. I would say that these are dupes of illicit recreational drugs. This is a 3D chemical structure of a known drug, and to synthesize new psychoactive substances, we can either swap out an atom that looks like this, or in some cases we can lengthen the chain length at another functional group.
NPS is something hard to describe because it's not just one substance, hundreds of substances and keeps changing. It's just like fashion like that. There's no one chemical that stays in the market for a very long time. They come and go.
So there are many different groups of new psychoactive substances, but I think in Singapore's context, we were seeing this explosion of synthetic cannabis a couple of years ago, and it was a lot more common than we realized. So traditionally, cannabis, also known as marijuana, weed, ganja, comes in the form of buds from the plant. The active ingredient is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is THC. It basically activates receptors in the brain and it makes you feel a certain way. And then you have your synthetic cannabis, something that mimics the effects of THC.
I started abusing drugs when I was P6. I managed to get a guy to sell me 1 pack of weed and I tried it with my friends. I felt my life was quite serious, so I used that to get away and yeah, I started buying more and more. I can't really remember how I was introduced to synthetic weed, but I know it was someone who told me that hey, this is similar to weed and it's damn cheap and you go urine test, nothing can caught lah.
So I've been working with drug abusers for about like 12 years right now. Recent years, I believe that younger and younger people have started to take drugs or experiment illicit substances where they believe that it may not even be illegal in that sense. And that's really how the birth of synthetic weed was in the first place. It was told to people you can't be caught through the urine test and it's nothing wrong. When the synthetic cannabis was newly introduced into the market, I believe that the regulation has not caught up. So I have a youth who confessed to me that he actually took the synthetic weed, but he had gone for the urine test and come back and there was no impact on him or consequence on him.
Okay, so around 2017, for with 1 small bag, right, it will cost you $50 onward. And the $50 will last you probably 3 or even 1 day. For synthetic, you can buy for $10, like a 1 full bag. And you can smoke it maybe for 1 week. That's worth more than even what you buy for $50. It's more intense.
So it just smells like tobacco.
Correct. But I think when you smoke it, you know what's the difference, yeah. After a while, people start going like collapse, like, you know, start white, like overdose.
At HSA, the Drugs Abuse Testing Laboratory also tests for drugs of abuse in urine samples. Every morning, officers from the Central Narcotics Bureau will submit the urine samples in these locked security boxes to our laboratory. These security boxes are actually locked at all times. The keys are held exclusively by the laboratory, ensuring that the sample cannot be tampered with prior to analysis. Each subject will actually have 2 urine samples that is being collected for testing, and each of the urine sample will be analysed independently. This is because, under the Misuse of Drugs Act, a person is presumed to have consumed the controlled drug if both the urine samples that have been collected actually test positive for the controlled drug.
The field tests used by the Drug Enforcement Agency, they are actually effective for presumptive detections of conventional drugs. Yeah, because they are well studied. When come to new psychoactive substance, these field tests may not be effectively to detect all MPS. Yeah, because they are fast evolving, and then they are designed to evade the detection using the conventional screening methods. So to be able to accurately identify the MPS in biological specimen, we have to use the advanced instrument commonly employed in the testing laboratories like HSA.
for MPS, we actually need an instrument that is actually capable of highly sensitive detection. This is because for MPS, it is actually very potent and is typically consumed in very small amounts. So we need an instrument that is able to accurately detect their presence at very low levels.
In the beginning, we are able to detect this MPS, but I must say very limited. My job is overseeing the operations of the laboratory for testing of urine and hair samples in suspected drug users submitted by drug enforcement agencies. I started to work in this lab since 2002. At that time, we are only dealing with the testing of the conventional drugs. The analysis is very straightforward. But this changed in 2010s, where NPS started to appear. We faced a key challenge with the detections of synthetic cannabinoids in urine.
Hui Yan came to my lab in 2019 prior to the outbreak of COVID-19. And she was here to consult me on how should we tackle the emerging problems in Singapore related to the new psychoactive substances, particularly the synthetic cannabinoids. Nobody in the world actually know during that time what should they use as biomarkers for detecting this illicit consumption.
When a drug enters the body, it can be broken down to more than one byproduct. After that, this will be excreted in the urine. So we need to so-called decipher whatever that collected in the urine sample to see whether drugs as well as its byproduct can still be detected. So in terms of our analysis, we have to know which are the biomarkers that are useful. It gives you the so-called fingerprint, which is specific to that particular drug. Every drug actually is unique in terms of how they're broken down in the body. Some is broken down fast, some slower. And for synthetic cannabinoids, they are extensively metabolized in the body. So you can't find the drug. You have to determine their specific byproducts as a proof of consumption. So we found this challenge. So for us working in this lab, we came from the chemistry background, but we do not have the knowledge in terms of like drugs metabolism. So I went back to school. Myself and one of my senior scientists, we enrolled together. This course is for pharmacy students. I think we were the oldest student in class.
These are the key enzymes we should look out for when we are investigating how the drug is being processed and metabolized in the liver. I teach a subject known as pharmacokinetics, where pharmaco refers to drug or medicinal substances, and kinetic refers to the movement of drug in our body. Without the knowledge of the pharmacokinetics of these synthetic cannabinoids, it is almost impossible for us to establish the biomarkers.
For this course, we learn about how drugs metabolize and how could we actually determine their detection window. But one thing I think what benefits us the most is the collaboration in terms of our research.
So beyond attending my class, Hui Yan became my research collaborator, and that has subsequently led to us establishing biomarkers for quite a number of classes of synthetic cannabinoids that have affected Singapore.
Our methodology now can actually detect over hundreds of known and emerging MPS. The effort must be continuous because the drugs keep changing.
When there are new MPS that are appearing on the market that we don't have references for, this is where we actually look online research publications and drug trend reports to find out clues on what could be the MPS that we are actually seeing. We also look at the chemical structures for clues as to what the chemical compound might actually be to determine the identity of the drug. Because for a class of drugs can have chemical structures that are very similar to each other. So you can imagine a Rubik's tube. It's a class of drugs. Synthetic catenones is a structure that has many different colors, so you can actually change the different sites to have different colors, so you can see many different combinations, but at the end of the day, it is still a synthetic catenone. So over the years, we have actually built up a library database that contains many of the known and emerging NPS, as well as NPS that we think might come into the drug market. The challenging part is, of course, there are so many NPS and we don't have all of them always in our library database. When we actually process the results, right, it will match to things that are already in our library. So this is actually the results of one of the urine sample that we have analysed. So you can see here, the unknown compounds have been identified to compounds that are present in our library database, and there are more than 10 controlled drugs that are actually being found. So in this urine sample, you can see that there are multiple NPS. For example, this urine sample contains 4-MMC, which is also known as methadone.
Drug syndicate is very smart, okay? As and when you come up with a testing methodology to identify this specific NPS, they will actually design a new one to circumvent detection's testing scope.
This group of new psychoactive substances are pretty amazing, I have to say. They are produced like in the illicit drugs laboratory, and it comes in various structural groups. The synthetic cannabinoid itself is one of the largest group of the new psychoactive substances. Synthetic cannabinoids mimic the effect of cannabis. This is subsequently followed by the synthetic catenones. For synthetic catenones, it actually mimics stimulant effects like the methamphetamine, or we known as ice. And now I would think that the synthetic opiates are also slowly emerging into the drug market. In Singapore, we have identified close to 200 new psychoactive substances.
There may be variants out there that still go undetected. And because it's that cat and mouse game, you've got home-based chemists that are cooking up chemicals that even they themselves have no idea how potent or how dangerous these things are. So I may be a psychotherapist, but I'm also a person that has lived experience. Ironically, I was a drug counselor who was struggling with his own addiction. Back when I was a functioning addict, there was no such thing as new psychoactive substances. If you look at some of these traditional substances, there is a sense of consistency. It's like going to a fast food restaurant, ordering a burger, and it kind of generally meets that expectation. But a few years ago, when I started working with clients that were presenting with NPS consumption, that's when you realize that some of these things that they were sharing or reporting to me were nothing that I have myself come across in my own lived experience. The clients whom I have worked with have shared that the effect is not consistent. There are two clients in particular who shared with me that it did not mimic what they thought it would.
So synthetic cannabis alone, I think there are many strains. And some of the examples that I can give you from my own observation is that one boy came back home and the mother told me that the effects of that is similar to alcohol. The other one was very interesting. The boy himself told me that after taking the synthetic weed, he's alert and he wants to do things. And he does repeated stuff. And that in itself sounds a little bit like methamphetamines. And then the last one, this synthetic weed had an effect where the boy was actually hallucinating and he was seeing things, and it's a bit more like LSD kind of experience. So these were the three different kind of experiences that I've heard from young people.
And all synthetic cannabis.
Or synthetic cannabis.
The growth of NPS variants presents a huge enforcement challenge for countries around the world, not just for Singapore. At the beginning, most countries list substances by chemical structure. So because the drug syndicates are actually getting increasingly adept at altering the chemical structures, so they can actually change the structure to something that is actually not listed in the law.
Law and Home Affairs Minister K. Shanmugam says that the government is working to tackle the rising abuse of new psychoactive substances, or NPS, within Singapore. And Mr. Shanmugam said that between 2014 and 2017, a total of 11 people here were caught abusing NPS, and that number jumped to an average of 235 abusers per year over the next 4-year period.
So prior to the introduction of the new law in 2024, CMB faced some challenges in enforcing the law against NPS that are not yet listed under the law. So to counter that, we introduced a new framework whereby we will control all psychoactive substances that are not yet listed under the law.
We are proposing a new legislative framework to deal with the NPS threat based on their capacity to produce a psychoactive effect rather than their molecular structure.
So this actually prevents them from evading the law even when they are trafficking or selling substances that are not listed yet.
In the past, NPS was regarded as what we call a legal high, meaning someone can consume it, get high, but then before regulations came in, the whole NPS was not regulated. So that was called a legal high. However, now the laws have changed, and now the current law, as I understand it, criminalizes any chemical that gives that psychoactive property.
But there is still this group of people selling such drugs, and I believe it's a little bit more underground as compared to the last time round, where they were doing it openly everywhere.
We found these listings.
I need a spec.
Interesting.
I need a spec.
Interesting. Yes, we have a specific price for a chemical compound. It also tells you the country of origin.
These are the drugs of abuse. Some of them actually are nitazines, analogs. FDCK actually is a new ketamine analog that we also detect in Singapore. These are new psychoactive substance.
It's telling you that the parcel will be sent out within 24 hours, and they ensure that it's secure and discreet shipping. There is a WhatsApp or Telegram number that's listed here. Most of the time, I think you're looking for the street name and the product itself. So how many of us are really awake to the scientific name? But here you're seeing that you can even have access to something that's pure, and then use that as the main ingredient to just create a whole lot more of something to put on the street. With regards to MPS, what I'm aware is that you don't really have finished products that are crossing borders. You have individuals that are bringing in what they need to finish the product and then to distribute it. We tell ourselves traditionally that drug consumption, it affects a certain demographic, a certain socio-economic status. But I think with NPS and with the consumption profiles of younger abusers today, I think it cuts across education level, socio-economic status. If you look at the latest stats released by the Central Narcotics Bureau recently, one of the area of concerns that was indicated is that out of the more than 1,000 new abusers arrested in 2025, half of these individuals were below the age of 30. I do have clients as young as 12, 13, 14.
COVID, what we have seen is that a lot of these young abusers have been using different kind of drugs, especially synthetic ones. I believe the lockdown played a big role in curbing the drug supply, and then because there was not the supply, they had to look at alternatives. So I've heard of people taking synthetic weed, methadrones, and bombs, designer benzodiazepines. These are the new psychoactive substances. They are calling this the soft drugs, and they are trying to say that it's okay to take them because you won't be able to be caught. At the same time, we are also seeing very liberal mindsets around these drugs now.
Even though Singapore's drug situation is largely under control, but we are also influenced by regional and global developments. So for example, countries are adopting approaches such as decriminalization of drugs, harm reduction, and even legalization of cannabis. Based on the surveys, our youths are actually getting influenced by all these developments.
They are saying that Singapore is backdated in its policies and how they view drugs, while other Western societies have already accepted them and allowed for this to happen. Many of these drug makers are also trying to follow the rhetoric of the young people. They are trying to angle these substances towards better wellness, better mental health. And I think that this marketing is also pretty much taken up easily by young people.
Today, all you have to do is get onto social media and without much difficulty, stumble upon a channel, make contact with someone through just a digital message. Money is exchanged and it shows up just below your doorstep. It's one of the avenues to gain access to it is perhaps a Telegram channel. And then you have got your buds, ecstasy, MDMA. These are your traditional drugs. And then you have NPS, like Spice. It's a street name for synthetic cannabis. With accessibility today, shifting mindsets, there is this lack of awareness to the detrimental effects of it.
I have youths telling me that it's marketed to them as they won't have the same kind of side effects as hard drugs. They are able to just take the drug and have fun without consequences. It's almost how the way they are marketing the vapes to the youths. It is sweet and it's something that has no consequence, it's nothing like smoking. I feel like they have borrowed the same languaging for these new psychoactive substances.
NPS are found in different products form And recently, vapes is a new product form that we have seen in the drug market. We have detected, for example, synthetic cannabinoid in vapes.
When vapes were coming out into the market, I think the original purpose of it was harm reduction, right? How do we deliver nicotine in a cleaner way that removes some of the impurities that perhaps cause things like cancer? So now that you have a new delivery device, if I am a producer, I become very interested in how can I put products out there that would attract individuals that are already on this device. 3 years ago, we were already hearing clients who were reporting to us of pods that were laced with THC, pods that were laced with something that mimicked the effects of methamphetamine, and how the vape device was delivering these substances.
A lot of these young people that have taken synthetic substances describe their euphoric experience as a lot more pronounced as compared to the other drugs that they have taken before. But the addiction effect on them is pretty strong.
Synthetic weed, the high goes very fast and it goes down very fast also. Probably like 10 minutes. Normally, when I buy $10, it can last me for 1 week. But after a while, $10 is 1 day. That even $10, I can spend 2 times in a day. So morning buy one, at night buy another one. It's like every moment. Okay, I don't know whether I tried M-bombs or LSD. When I got it, I cut it into 4 pieces. It was a sticker. So I take one first and I relax at the basketball court. So another one got me like, wow, I saw the basketball court was like moving like this. So I knew that M-bombs was something crazier than LSD. Someone jumped in Clarke Quay River and died, yeah, because of M-bomb. It was friends of friends lah, and because he took that, I think it was only half of it. So taking half of the tab, that means it's super strong.
So typically, substances which are shorter acting will be more addictive than those that are not so potent. And for every drug, because of tolerance, you need more and more and more and more in order for you to get the high that you want. Here in NAMS, we also see people that turn psychotic because of repeated drug use, because drugs essentially change the brain chemistry.
So what point do you decide like you want to stop? What point? I think the point when I experienced hearing of voices. Taking this synthetic weed, it gets you like 100% awareness of your surrounding and yourself. It was first like a voice in my head. And then it started like a voice beside me. It became like a person beside me. And it became like every emotion, there's another voice. And the voices will come and hunt me. Whatever he says, I had to do it. I became very violent. I will stand in the kitchen, holding a knife and thinking that someone were to do anything to me anytime. I even had a thought of like doing this to my family members, and it got me off guard that I can't even control the voices. I managed to contact Narash. I told him that, bro, I want to stop. I wanna quit all this.
So when Niraj reached out to me and asked for support, he was experiencing a lot of struggle. He was also telling us that he was seeing things, hearing things, and that was very concerning for this young man. So the support system was there so that he will not fall away or be tempted. We also accompanied him to NAMS to help him with his substance use.
If you have any addiction, you can actually just admit yourself into NAMS.
So besides taking you to NAMS, what else did Niraj do?
He gives me like a timetable to follow. So he called like 2 guys, send me to gym, fetch me from school and bring me back to home. Most of the time when people relapse, right, actually, I learned that they can't follow the timetable. And then after a while, I admitted into a halfway house because I knew that I can't anymore, and I keep on relapse. Like I keep on doing the same thing, even though I seek for help.
So how many years have you been clean now?
5 years. Now I'm 23. I graduated today. I just completed digital marketing. I started volunteering in Impact in the youth sector. I help youth fetching them from home, bring them to tuition, sending back them to their home, just like talking to them and all, like guiding them. The same thing that I receive, I give it.
He became better over time. Unfortunately, I've heard that some of these young people didn't make it.
If you look at some of these traditional substances, there is a traditional idea of where it's manufactured and how it's being distributed. But here with NPS, you are able to purchase the chemical that comes from outside of our borders, and then you are able to create a finished product. So there is that difference where you're actually finishing a product, but just a small miscalculation could change the potency of this product.
It is very rare that the HSA scientist is activated to go for a raid. It only happens like when they are suspected of a very complex drug manufacturing cases. I'm a senior forensic scientist with the illicit drugs lab of Health Sciences Authority. So it was 2017, around December period, and then it was industrial unit at Yishun area. That morning, actually CMB contacted HSA saying that the scientists need to respond to a suspected clandestine laboratory. When we arrived at the scene, the first thing that I remember, it was like there was a very strong chemical odor. There were like one big tray containing vegetable matter that appeared damp lying on the floor. From the evidence collected, it is very likely that the suspect has been lacing MPS onto tobacco. After completing the lacing, they are air drying the plant material so that it can be separated and packaged into smaller packets for distribution. For the 2 trays of vegetable matter, as well as the 2 packets of dry vegetable matter, they all have been analysed and detected to contain synthetic cannabinoids. Synthetic cannabinoids is a chemical naturally is supposed to present in the solid form. However, to be able to lace onto the MPS effectively, usually they will dissolve it with a solvent into a solution so that they can use it to spray it on the plant material. When it comes to spraying, it is possible that uneven spraying or uneven application of the solution to the plant material may actually cause some part of the plant material to have higher concentration compared to the other part. By having these hotspots, every dose that the user takes is now like very unpredictable. You may be taking a lot more than the normal dosage, which can be fatal.
So this was a 17-year-old Chinese male with no past medical history. He was smoking weed with a friend, so both of them took 2 puffs each. And then after that, they started shivering uncontrollably and vomiting. Approximately 6 hours later, one was feeling better, but the 17-year-old was unresponsive. They called the ambulance. He was conveyed to the emergency department of the hospital, where resuscitation failed and he was pronounced dead. As the cause of death was not known, this case was referred to the coroner and an autopsy was authorized. There was no cannabis or any other weed that we know of in the system. We found the synthetic cannabinoid drug ADB fubinaca in a post-mortem sample of blood at a concentration of 56 nanograms per ml of blood. Most drugs are found in the levels of micrograms. Nanograms is 1,000,000 times lighter than a milligram. So very few drugs are so small in quantity. We believe that the potency is very, very significant.
So here in this report, there were 2 youths smoking from the same joint, but unfortunately one passed on. So we could be both sharing the same cigarette or joint, but perhaps you have received an overexposed section of it as compared to me. It is something that is very, very concerning. We also have a 19-year-old youth who consumed lysergic acid, right, LSD tab, with a group of friends in his house. After an unknown period of time, they started to behave oddly and uncontrollably. Unfortunately, the person passed on.
25VN bomb was detected in the post-mortem sample of blood. It was also a new psychoactive substances that was not well published at that moment in time. So at that point, we observed these first 4 cases of fatalities due to MPS in Singapore, and we thought it would be useful to publish this case series to increase awareness of MPS use in Singapore, as well as to contribute to the global body of knowledge about MPS. In the first case, the 17-year-old male, he thought he was smoking weed. In the second case, the 19-year-old male thought that he was taking LSD. Generally, LSD and cannabis are thought to be less likely to result in direct fatalities. So we were very shocked that what they thought they were taking were relatively less likely to cause death, but in fact, they were not those drugs that they thought. It was something else that was totally new and potentially many times more sinister.
Your child is just going out to have a good time with friends at a party. They imagine that they're having, 2 puffs of a cigarette or a joint, but they never come home.
There is mushrooming of clandestine labs.
मैंने एक लैब में खुद गया बनते हुए देखा एस्ट्रोनॉट जैसा सूट पूरा ऊपर से सूट फुल कवर.
The countries in Southeast Asia is surrounded by countries that have growing chemical industry, like China and India.
Traffickers have used drones to traffic drugs into Singapore. They have hidden drugs in fruits. These are some of the new methods that we have detected over the years.